First, remove the driver's seat. There's 2 bolts securing the seat down, one right under here and under here. These are T25. You can see the screw right over there. Next, remove the gas tank side trim. You will remove the top fairing and the right side as well. There is a bolt right here, one here, one here. There is 1, 2, 3, one center one down there. We'll go to the other side. There is one right here, one right here, one right here. Again, 1, 2, 3. Take all those off and put them to the side on a safe place. The top fairing on the gas tank will just pull up and out, and the side tank trim, you push forward and then it will come out. The gas tank trim should be pretty easy to remove. You just slide it forward like so. I'm going to do in a second. If it does not move, you may have forgot a bolt. Like I said, I basically forgot this one right here. So obviously I took it out, and you pull forward and it should come right out like so. I decided to put the bolts back into the respective places just so that I don't end up losing them. But yeah, I just kind of put them back in all the spots except for this one, because obviously this top cover, if this one's in here, we won't be able to get this part off and out of the way. Next, we are going to take our gas tank off. I believe these are a T30, and this should be a 10 millimeter right there. So we're going to first take out these 2, one on each side, and then we will loosen this bolt and take that out. When you're taking off the gas tank bolts, there is this metal spacer behind here, so make sure you don't lose those as you're taking them out. If you have a slick chip installed, you can do 1 or 2 things. You could just turn this to the side like so and get it out of there. Push that down and just move it out of the way so it's not hitting anything. You could push it down, or you could literally just take this little bracket off, but I felt like that was the easiest way. Now, taking off the gas tank, you have a few options. You could unbolt 1, 2, 3, 4 and keep this whole piece here. But what I'm going to do is, like I said, since this bolt's out already, you just kind of lift it back up like this, and then you're going to end up flipping it back. There is going to be the fuel line connector under here and 2 electric connectors. Before you lift up the gas tank, you're going to have to take off these 2 right here and right there. Those will be connected to the tank. Take off those vent lines. Take note of the 2 retaining clips on the side of the gas tank. When you are removing this thing, try not to lose these because they may end up falling down in there. There is 1 on each side. So we are going to lift the tank up and back to get it out of the frame. Go up pretty high and then tilt back like so. Now, like I said, there is the 2 connectors under here and the fuel line. So I propped the tank up over here just so I can kind of show you guys. But for the retainer, you'll see that silver part right there. Let me see if I can get this to film it correctly. It's basically right here. You push that in and you could pull this out. Fuel's gonna come down, and then obviously with like that connector right there, you gotta very lightly pull this tab back. You could probably just stick a tiny little screwdriver in there, a very thin one, and then pull it down. You do this for both of the electrical connectors, and then you can safely remove the gas tank. So you have your tank off in a safe location. We're gonna get our T25 and take out this bolt right here. Usually, from my understanding, there's a zip tie holding this all together here and probably like over here. But either way, you can see that we kind of have some room now to move this. Once we take that out, this should be able to go up. We are going to unplug this one right here. We'll unplug that. We are going to unplug this right here. We'll unplug that one. I believe we're gonna definitely have to unplug 1, 2, 3, 4, all those. We are gonna pull this out like so. We're gonna do it on the other side as well. Just pull it out and pull it down that way. And yeah, let me take this off and then kind of see what's next. These two are just like the gas tank ones. You literally just lift this up a little bit, very carefully. You don't want to break it, and you pull out. This one right here, you just push in like this, and this will end up coming out. You may have to hold it, but yeah, this thing does come out. So I'm gonna do that, take that off. I moved this out of the way. So these four are very easy to get off. You literally just put a screwdriver in there, push up against that, and then you just end up pulling up. I don't know if I can do it with one hand. Yep, see, so basically it comes out very easy. Let's get all these out and get to the next step. So we got all these off. This is your IAT right here. It is a blue and almost looks like a brownish wire. It almost looks red on film, but it looks kind of brown in person. But you don't want to mess up the injectors with the IAT. So when you're putting this back together, be very careful of that. So you can see it has that little white thing, or at least mine does. So I'll know that that's for the IAT, and that will not be going on the injector. So there's no, each one of these does not have that white thing. So that's gonna make it pretty easy to remember that. So same thing, you just push in the clip and then it just pulls straight out. Let's go to the other side real quick. So for this one right here, to get this off, you're gonna have to squeeze it in. Probably use some pliers or something like that. And supposedly this is pretty hard to get out, so you're gonna have to squeeze it pretty good. And then we'll just try jiggling it, and then I'll make sure that works, and then I'll let you know. So that worked fine with the vice grips to just squeeze on the sides, and then this thing pulls out. So that's out now. I did just use a little screwdriver to prop this up. We're probably gonna have to unplug this ECU. I'm gonna try not to if possible, but more than likely we'll have to unplug it. But for now, we are going to flip these up, and we will do the other side as well. And then we're gonna start getting all this stuff out of here. This will be for the air filter. So there's a little Phillips type of thing right there. We're gonna get that out. And then we're gonna start basically getting all this stuff out of here, right over here. So I unscrewed this Phillips head. This is just gonna end up coming up now, like so. Try to show you how it looks. Ooh, careful. Almost lost this thing, which you don't wanna lose, but this just pulls up. You can see we have access to our air filter over there. And let me put this bracket down with the little thing. We don't want to lose that. I'm going to put that back in there so I remember that it goes in there. But this will end up having to come out next. I moved the vent lines that were lining up right over here, moved them to the side. This just pulls forward a little bit, and then it starts to pull up, as you can see. So we'll end up working this out. So I have to put this back down a little bit just to get a little bit of room, but you're seeing that it's gonna start to come up, so the whole thing will just end up coming right up like so. We'll have our air filter, and we'll pull out this whole thing. So now we have to take this thing out of here. As you can see, when I wiggle it like this, it does have some play and some movement. So we're gonna get this out. So to remove this one, you just end up kind of twisting it and pulling up, and then that will get out. It'll probably be the reverse steps to put it back in. Probably have to twist and turn. This will move down to the side, and then we'll take our T25. And there is 4 bolts to take out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you'll just jiggle out that, and you'll end up pulling it back down over here. Since we have the 4 bolts out for the fuel injector rail, we are just going to lightly pull this up. Make sure none is attached. And this should just kind of pull straight up. It pulls up and out like that. Just kind of pop it out. And there is our fuel injector rail. see if I could just kind of tilt this back. Kind of going out of the way. And next we're going to have to take off this thing right here. I'm just going to push this back, push it over like so. Yeah, at least that's kind of out of the way now. And now we're going to take off this cover. T25 3 bolts, because we have a wire from the harness that goes into there. So we got the 3 bolts out. We will pull up on our cover. So now this just comes up. As you can see, we have this thing that snugs right into there. That's why it was a little bit tough to get out. Nothing too crazy, but now this thing can go down. And the fuel injector rail kind of move to the side. Pretty sure we're going to have to unplug this ECU, but I'm going to try not to, if possible, so we don't have to relearn any processes. But now we're going to take off the 2 bolts here. There's one on the other side as well. There is one right down in here, if you could see it. One down here, and then there's going to be one down on the other side as well, all the way across over there. So I'm going to take those out, starting with the top 2, and then we'll take off the 2 ones over there. So even though we just took this thing out, we're going to unplug the wire harness. This thing is going to go back into here, but it goes into this little tube thing like right here. You can see it right like that, and you probably have to turn it to the right like that, and it ends up turning. So like I said, let me unplug this. It'll be very easy after this is all bolted down just to plug back in. Obviously, you'll use the side on the bottom with the little nub going in like that. But yeah, let me unplug this from the harness. I will line this back up with that, turn it if I need be, and get that straight back in there and bolt it all back together. We have all 4 of the bolts out that are holding down the airbox. It just starts to pull up. Make sure you move the connectors on this left side out of the way, because they are going to get stuck on stuff. And same with this one, where I'm trying to keep the ECU on so that we don't have to go through the learning procedure of doing the transmission over with the quick shifter. If not, I mean, like I said, this would be a ton easier if this was out of the way, because this can pull to the side. But anyway, like I said, you just pull up, make sure that these connectors are not caught on anything, because they will get caught on stuff. And like I said, the airbox just kind of pulls up. You can kind of grab towards the front and just start pulling it up like that. Like I said, all this stuff in the way right now is really not helping. So I'm actually going to see if I can swing it to the front now. You can only do so much like that. So I'm going to pull this up. There's that. So before taking that thing off, I'm actually going to see if I could just keep this like this and kind of get everything wired up like it needs to be, because if I don't have to take that off, it's just going to be a lot more easier getting this whole thing back into place. So I have the whole IRC quick shifter whole assembly out on the floor so you could just kind of see. Obviously, this is our quick shift and auto blip sensor. We have our controller unit. We have the rod that came with it. We have these. This one right here with the black box, this connects where the quick shifter was. Those are for the coils. That one over there is for the APS connector. And let's see, this one over here is for the gear shift connector. So I'm going to start basically getting this up over here. We are going to have to take off the rubber caps take this one off and take this one off. There is, over here you can see, kind of hard to see, but over here, the quick shifter connector is basically held in by a zip tie to this thing over here. And it runs up to here, and that's where this white connector is going to plug into. This white connector will plug right into there. But yeah, so I'm gonna start taking all this off. I'm gonna be very, very careful when I clip this zip tie, because you do not wanna end up clipping the OEM quick shifter wire. So let me start ripping all this stuff off. We'll get back. I'll kind of show you how I kind of have this sitting right here for convenience. They do say to put in the tail, but I don't think you need to do that. I actually think I'm gonna run the wire through the frame, to be honest with you. It's because I think there's enough room on each side. And the only thing that sucks about this, even if you do zip tie it here, if the chain's too loose or something like that, there's pretty good probability of it literally ripping that cable or wire off. And if you do that on this IRC one, then you got to get a new thing or reconnect it, and we're not trying to do that. So I think I'm going to run it actually through here and then up through there. But let me start getting all this stuff in. Oh, one more thing I forgot, obviously, is this goes to the negative battery terminal. So yeah, let's start throwing all this stuff together and get that stuff off. Just a quick note, this is a T30, and don't forget the washer on the back. So make sure when that's going back in there, we'll probably end up reusing this washer, but like I said, that is a T30, and don't forget the washer in the back. So here's where we are right now. We have the controller mounted up right here. This is just temporary to hold it. Some people actually use that. I'll probably use some like double-sided sticky tape or something like that. But for me, I'm OCD about the wiring. I want to make it look as clean as possible. And here's how I am currently doing it. So with the controller and the 3 wires, they're running up over here, up through the subframe, right over there, and kind of running in here. I'm just routing it like that. I did take this wire, I kind of ran it up, under, and through here, and it's probably just gonna sit right here. The shifter thing right here is gonna end up going down through there and through there, and then like I said, I'll run it probably through there. Now obviously you gotta be careful not to hit anything, but we'll make sure that clears. If not, then I'll end up rerouting it. But that's just kind of how I got it right now. Because then this, they do say to mount this in the tail, but if you are on a track or something like that, you want to be able to adjust stuff on the fly pretty easily just here without taking off stuff. So it's going to stay right there. Like I said, that's there. Ran it up through here. There's the wire for it. Took this off. It's going to run along with this wiring down here. It's not there right now currently, but I'm gonna run it down there, and then we gotta run it somewhere where it's not gonna interfere with anything like the gas line or anything like that, because there is an orientation for the gas line. You see it kind of goes like that, and then it's supposed to just kind of sit in there. The whole kind of like, basically like that. That's how the orientation of the gas line is supposed to be. So let me start buttoning up some more things. This one right here, like I said, is gonna plug right into there, so I'm gonna do that right now. And then we will get the other one, this one, plugged into the other one right there, and I'll show you which one it is. There is a certain orientation for this. You can see the little nub that's right there. It obviously goes up into this part like that, that ends up bending. So I got this whole footrest off with that. We're gonna measure from eye to eye to see how long it should be. And another quick note, like I said, here's the rear set bracket. You have your washer, this part, and then another T30 bolt holding it in place right there. So this is plugged in. Make sure it's nice and snug. It's kind of hard to tell, but you can kind of see that little nub is sitting fully in this little square right there. We did run the ground wire from here underneath there, and obviously it is going to the battery like so. And this is the one that we are going to end up plugging this part in. And the part that we pull out is going to plug into that back end piece right there. So that will plug into that. But it is this one. It does have the wires that are the following colors: yellow green, pink black, and pink black. So those, or purple, this more looks like a purple to me, but it's a purple black, and a green, and it almost looks like a yellow bluish type of deal, but it is that one right there. Obviously, if you look at these two things, don't get them confused. I don't think, yeah, no, this one's definitely a lot more bigger than this one. So like I said, pretty self-explanatory. I'll go plug that in. And like I said, this wiring and all that stuff's gonna have to be tucked away someone onto the side, but let me go plug that in first, and then I'll show you where we are next. So here's how it looks. Like I said, we got our new harness plugged into the original part over here, and the part of the original harness to plug into the adapter right here. Make sure you fully seat it. As you can see that little notch sticking towards the end, so that's good there. Like I said, all these things have to push in really, well, not really hard, but just make sure you push them in tight and make sure they're fully seated. That's important. When you're running your cable, or wire, I should say, that's gonna go up over here for the coils, which will be this one right here, make sure that you do not end up getting it caught over here. I had the wire on top of that, and obviously you don't want to do that with the airbox. So you're gonna have to run it, maybe even zip tie it to this thing is probably what I'm gonna end up doing. But yeah, for now, we're gonna run that over there, and then we have to connect it to one of the coils. We will disconnect one of them. They do say to kind of use the first one on the left. It doesn't matter really. It could be any of these coils, any one. I may end up doing this middle one right here, number 2. Maybe that one I might use. I'm gonna figure it out just because that might be the easiest to access, because that's kind of tight, or maybe the first one, we'll see. But let me go play with that. And again, same thing. The coil, the harness that plugs into the coil itself, that will plug into here. And then this will go directly into the coil. I put 2 zip ties around this main harness to hold the 2 wires, one for the coil and one for the other sensor. Now we have to take off this whole side panel right here. There's a bolt here. There is one there. There is one there. There's 2 there. There'll be some over there. So we'll end up taking this whole thing off. There's like one right there. And I believe we could leave that one on, or maybe that one right there, but we're gonna take off this whole panel now. All right, so we have our left panel off. Now, in my opinion, either coil number 1 that's right under here, or coil number 3, if I get this stuff out of the way, is the easiest to remove. This one is probably the easiest, but the one in number 1 isn't really that bad. I just wanna make sure there's enough room for that airbox stuff. But basically, you can see there's that little tab. You put a tiny screwdriver up and lift it a little bit and just pull it out. I'm actually gonna push this back in because I did get number 1 done. And it's kind of hard to see, but I put a little screwdriver up in there, that I pushed it in there, and then just pulled this out. And then I'm gonna be able to tuck all the wires like up over here. Just gotta make sure it doesn't touch the engine, but I may be able to like zip tie it to this part over here. These are gonna literally unplug this. I believe this goes into there, and then this one should go into here. But let's first do the coil. Like I said, I got this one, a little screwdriver I actually got to get out of there. But like I said, I just lightly lifted it from the inside like that. If the airbox was completely off, it'd probably be a little bit easier, but it's a small screwdriver, so it worked. And then I just pulled it out this way. So I'm gonna pull that out. We'll get our connector that basically mimics this one, plugs into there, and then that plugs into the other cord. So here's the wire. Like I said, I just kind of brung it down. It was sticking out over there. The part that was plugged into the coil, this is going to plug into this, and this is going to plug into the coil directly itself. So we have the new harness plugged into the coil, and the harness for the OEM connector into that new one that was, it's kind of hard to see, but I'm gonna tuck it right in there. I did, for these wires, I swapped it through the frame over here. I'm gonna have to tuck it back in there. There's a lot of slack. So we're gonna unplug this. We're gonna unplug that black connector. It's gonna go into the white, I believe. And then the black connector is going to take place of this black connector right there. So I'm going to go do that real quick. So note the orientation of the plug. This connector literally just pulls right down. There is on this side a clip you push in, and on the back side as well. So just be aware of that. We'll end up plugging, like I said, this into this big white connector, and that will go back up in there, and then this will go to that. So I got this all connected like it should be, like I said. I ended up putting the stock one back into its original bracket, and the other one just kind of tucked it in that spot right there. Now you can see how I kind of just placed the old coil wire on top of the coil to the new harness, and obviously the new harness from the IRC plugs into the coil right there. I think that should be fine just like that, and I think this should be plenty right there. All right, now we gotta work on the gear shifter, get that all set. All right, so just about eye to eye, we are looking at right around a foot, just about 12 inches. You can do the conversion to centimeters if need be, but as you can see, it's like right at the 12-inch mark. So we'll reference that when we're using the other rod and everything to try to get it to that length. We're gonna end up taking these out of the quick shifter now. So we're gonna do that, take off the nuts, screw those things out, and we'll start working on the other one. When you're reinstalling the airbox onto the throttle bodies, obviously line it up, and you are gonna have to put a decent amount of downforce on it to get it to fully seat on there. You'll know that it is all fully seated when something like this is right up against where it should be. So that's fully seated. Don't forget the longer bolts are on the top and the shorter ones are on the bottom there and there. Be careful with these bottom ones. I hear that they do end up cross threading and or stripping out relatively easy. So be careful when you're reinstalling those bolts. When you're putting the fuel rail back into place, make sure you seat it down pretty snug. You'll know it's bottomed out when these parts right here are nice and flush up against where it could be. You could put the 4 bolts back in there, snug those up. We'll plug in all these into the respected areas, like so and like so. And then we'll put our IAT back in there. Then after that is done, we'll end up plugging this sensor back into here. Literally it just goes right back in there. But let me go button this up and then we'll get to the next step. This whole part is all connected now. I am gonna end up taking this back off just because, I mean, I might be able to get it in there, but just to make sure that it's in nice and snug, I don't wanna have any problems. So I'm gonna definitely just take this off again, pop this out, plug it back in, turn the little thing inside here to make sure the ball lines up with the points, and put it back down, and then that'll be all set for that. Then we're gonna start putting back the airbox thing. Don't forget this thing, it may have fell down in here. Probably not a bad idea to clean out inside here if you see any dirt. So let's start getting this all set. I'll clean out the inside of that. Then we're gonna end up putting the other filters. You'll end up putting your vent lines back where they are, and I'll show you how that looks after that's all put back together. So I cleaned out my air filter. It was filthy, especially the inside of the airbox. You can see it's pretty squeaky clean now. But wow, this thing, it was bad. There was a lot of stuff in there, including the air filter. So make sure you clean this thing. Also note that the little nubs on the airbox obviously go down into those slots right there. So make sure you line those up good. But like I said, it is very important to make sure you clean out this air filter housing because, like I said, mine was filthy. Hopefully yours isn't as bad, but yeah, definitely do it for sure. So everything is back in place now. We got this part, we clipped this in, we put that front part, we cleaned that out as well. We got the little push pin and or whatever you want to call that, that's back in there. We have our gas vent lines kind of lining up with that right there like it should. And now we're gonna end up flapping the ECU back over, and then we'll start connecting stuff like this. And the little ones for here and for over here, right there. So we got a few of these things. Let me flip this back over and I'll show you everything. We made sure we plugged this connector in. Make sure you hear a click. If you push it in good, it should click. we have the bolt holding down part of the ECU. This plug, we're gonna plug in real quick. This just goes straight in like so. Almost hear a little click with that. And same with this one, we're gonna plug that into there, fully seat it, hold it like this. Okay, that's fully seated. And okay, so this part is basically all set over here. But don't forget to make sure that you push the wiring harness back into these little slots over here and over here. Sometimes it's a little bit of a pain to push in, but you just got to give it some good force and it goes in. So this is all buttoned up now. Now I got to end up sorting all these wires so it's not dangling all over the place. Obviously we don't want anything to get burnt. So I'm going to kind of figure that out, kind of probably put it all to the one side or the other, probably all on this left side, to be honest with you. I'll find a place for this box. Obviously we don't want to mess up the fuel line. So we got to make sure that that's not in the way. But I'm going to go tidy all this stuff up and then I'll kind of show you how I ended up making all this work. So here's how it ended up coming out. The quick shifter auto blip wire, I kind of ran up through here. Like I said, it routed through here. And just because it was so long, I routed it down here, kind of followed the harness, went that way, kind of went down, and then it just ends up shooting down over here and out through down over there. So this part I just kind of bunched together for the most part and zip tied it to the side. I don't think it's going to be an issue. The little black box is right down here by the fuel line. It's almost touching the block, very close. And the other cables, I just kind of tucked them in there because that should be fine. It shouldn't stick up or anything. I don't think it's going to cause any issues like over there. So that should be good. Like I said, this is pretty tidied up. It's basically there for the most part. I think that should be fine considering the height of that. So that should be good. And like I said, the coil thing should be totally fine there. So I'm going to end up cutting all these little things off now just so I can clean it up some. I think that'll be good. Here's our gas tank connectors and the fuel line. Like I said, the orientation is still able to go where it's supposed to go, so that should be good. Like that. Obviously, I zip tied this part back in there. I have to do more of a permanent fix with this after we test it to make sure everything's working. Got to put my little guy back in there. So that's set. Like so. Slick chip is all set to go. And yeah, I think we're pretty good with the install. I think it came out pretty clean. I just can't believe how dirty the filter was and the housing and everything. So just obviously make sure you double check that and make sure that it's all clean before you put that back in there. But I double checked all the connections. Everything should be good. So now I'm gonna actually just throw the panel back on because I know these connections are tight. I'm gonna get back in there and everything else should be good. So I'm gonna go put that panel back on. I'm gonna throw the tank back on. We're gonna start it back up and make sure we don't have any error codes or anything like that. We should be good because everything's where it should be. So, all right guys, here we go. We're gonna turn the key on. This thing should illuminate. And I'm gonna check on the dash of the bike that there's actually no errors. If not, I'm gonna end up starting it up and make sure everything is functioning. All right, dash seems good. All right, we're gonna let the bike warm up and then we'll go test it to make sure everything is working correctly. All right, so I did end up getting a longer shift rod. This was a Sato Racing one. There's plenty of them on the internet, but this is 190 millimeters long. The other one was, I don't know the exact size, but it was smaller. Now, the reason I got it was because I wanted to keep the footrests exactly where they were because I liked how it felt. And even though I extended all the possible extensions out with the original shift rod, it wasn't long enough. And this thing was like pointing down, like down over here. It was definitely not long enough. So 190 millimeters with this hp4 rear set all the way back like this, and basically I have still plenty of adjustment, and I think that's basically where I need it right now. I think that looks pretty good and it felt pretty good as well. I do see a lot of people running this part over here, and you can actually run the wire through here. You can mount it up here to where the original one was, but I wanted to do it over here because this way it has the least possible way if the chain ended up getting thrown or it was really loose or something. There's no way now, except that if the chain actually broke, that it would end up clipping this wire for the quick shifter and auto blipper. So this does fit perfectly fine in the frame. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of hard, but shifting up, there's plenty of room, and obviously shifting down is fine. I did make sure I left some slack in the cable, and it kind of just goes basically up with this wire right here, and that's perfect. We got this pointing down like it's supposed to. I don't know if that really make a difference, but I made sure that it was like that. But yeah, 190 millimeters. I got this from Sato Racing, SATO, I believe. Like I said, there's plenty on eBay that you can get, mostly in a black color, but I wanted to get the silver one because that's kind of just goes with the whole thing. It looks more uniform. It doesn't look more out of place. I do got to get something to literally like get this a lot more seated than using the zip ties. I don't like that. It doesn't look clean. So that'll be the last step. But yeah, 190 millimeters, got it basically where I wanted it to be. And like I said, I do have plenty of adjustments, so I could go up some more if I want, depending if I'm wearing, riding boots or whatnot. But yeah, so this is all buttoned up now. So let's start finishing the rest of it. One more thing about this side, I could have moved this in, and if you like having the foot pegs in that position where this is more forward, then you might not need to get a longer shift rod. So you have to play with it and see what works best for you. But like I said, I wanted to keep this exactly where it was, and 190 millimeters got me where I needed to be. So the quick test ride went perfect. Everything worked very good. At the end of the video, I'll actually ride it and you can see it on video to hear how it sounds. And obviously you can make adjustments to the unit depending on how you would like it. But we did put the clip back on here. We got the bolt back in here, tighten that up to 10 millimeter. We got this part plugged in, holding the tank. The other side, we plugged in the 2 vent lines. And of course, we have our old black panel, the whole panel back on. Obviously I did that off camera, but pretty easy to do. Just reverse the steps like we did it before. So that's all set now. This is all tidied up. That is good. So now I'm just gonna throw the 2 side panels back on. Very easy, you just slide it in that way. I'm gonna make sure I take out all the bolts because I just kept them in their place so that I didn't lose them. So I'm gonna definitely take all those out right here, and right here. I believe that should be it. And then, like I said, I'm gonna put both sides on. We'll put our seat back on. We will put our top cover back on. And then we gotta get that long center bolt to hold this down into place and hold the cover in place as well. Now is a pretty good time to end up cleaning up the gas tank over here and over here, because you can see it's pretty dirty on mine, and obviously we won't be seeing that for a while. So let me go do that real quick. So we got everything back installed, all the bolts. Make sure you go through and make sure they're all nice and snug. At first, I didn't really like the black zip ties, but they don't look horrible, to be honest with you. I still got to clip these two ends off if I'm going to keep that. I may do something else, but it's definitely not a bad option. I did keep the battery charger right on this side as well because I didn't want to be near the exhaust. Everything is looking great. So let's get this thing off the stand. We'll get a cold start going and go for a quick ride. It seems like the quick shifter and auto blipper is working flawless. Very nice to have this auto blipper on here. Obviously, I'll show you it's working. Yeah, see, beautiful. Seems to work very well, so pretty happy with that. Let's just get a little bit higher RPM on the highway for a second, and we'll make sure that the quick shifter is working good. As you can see, the test ride went perfect. I think that the settings right out of the box are really not that bad, but of course you can adjust it to your liking. The instructions that came with the IRC kit are really not that great in my opinion, so this is why I made this video. And hopefully it was helpful for you guys. If the video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.